20th, first day of spring as of about 5 p.m. or so this evening. Of course, you can't tell it from the breezes outside. On behalf of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Board of Directors of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club, I hereby call to order the 27th meeting of our 60th year of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club. Our invocation, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, will be given today by Deacon Mark Fuller of St. Michael's the Archangel Catholic Church. Deacon Mark.
Blessed are you, Lord God of all creation, whose goodness fills our hearts with joy. Blessed are you who have brought us together this day to work in harmony and peace. We thank you for the food we have enjoyed that nourishes our bodies and the fellowship that brings us joy. Strengthen us with your grace and wisdom to bring our work to completion. May hope accompany our journey through the days to come. May God's abiding presence be with you all the days of your life. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he look upon you with kindness and give you his peace. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry. Boy, I got plenty.
You?
Our introduction today of special guests, and if I could just have that turned down just a hair in the back, whoever controls that. Thank you. To my right, your left, Club Trustee Dennis Manzel and Deacon Mark. Down in front of me are Admiral Job for Streaming Media, Stark Media, TJ Downing. We appreciate his presence. And now to my left, your right, our featured speaker today, Joe Dose. Next to Joe, on his left, is personal friend George Whitfield. Somebody may know him from his massive days as a tiger. And next to Joe, the best looking out of the group, is Jill Thomas. And Jill represents our Marion Motley Memorial Fund, and we appreciate her being here. Club recognition of our corporate sponsors. To either screen to the left and right of me, you'll see AultCare's Primetime Health, Dr. Peter Ferguson. Dr. Pete, you're here today, aren't you? Can you stand up and be recognized? We don't always get to do that. He left, okay, all right, sorry. All right. Wilkshire Golf Course, and of course, Liberty Ford. Announcements. Please turn off all cell phones, or at least put them on stun so that or wake up or whatever. Yeah. And then please, if you have any desire at all to serve our esteemed luncheon club, get your name either to me or our group of three J's. And that would be Jeff Thornberry, Jim Mitchell, or Jim Osborne, 3 past presidents who are in the back room. We will be having elections the week of April 10th, and we'll be collecting those names probably for 1 more week, I'm guessing, and then we'll be needing to put out the ballot to let you know who's who and that kind of stuff. Okay, unfortunately, I do have a death to report today. Longtime club member John W. Sponseller passed away this past Wednesday, the 15th. And on to our raffle tickets. Our 50-50 today is a season high, $165. So if you bought one, you got a chance. Jim Osborne will be passing out the winner. And let's do that now.
Joe, I'm going to ask you to dig deep, shallow, wherever you want to go.
Make one friend and a lot of enemies. All right.
There you go.
And we got a bent corner or something I should look for?
All right. Thank you. Just one roll today.
Our winning ticket is 516. Everybody still in? 882. 882. Where are we?
Came too early. Yeah.
Right there, all the way up. He's gonna make you travel today, Ozzy. Okay? Next week, our speaker will be Jensen Lewis of the Cleveland Guardians. And to introduce this week's speaker, a friend long ago, we were reminiscing in the back room here before he came up. George Whitfield was co-captain of the '69 Massillon Tigers, and that's while Jeff and I were too small to play ball, but we were the managers on that team. So it's great to see George Whitfield. And George, come on up.
Thanks, Jim and Jeff. Well, I'm over here in the Bulldog country. Okay, and we got a couple of tigers too. How about that? I'm sorry, guys, I had to say that a little bit, but it is a pleasure always. We're sitting there talking, and I want to get to my friend here, Joe, but I couldn't resist. I'm in Bulldog country. And as a Tiger, we have great respect for our traditions, both for Massillon and Bulldog. If I'm going anyplace else, if I'm playing anyplace else, I played in the North All-Star with Coach Chismar that year in '69. He did a great job. I knew with Coach Chiz what we were going to do. And he had a couple Bulldogs with us. Mosey Hunter, he came over. We were the two smallest guys on the team. And guess what happens when it came to defense? Because of the way we play here, because we're from this area, because we're Bulldogs and a Tiger, we became co-captains. Two of the smallest guys on a team that won with a Bulldog coach. So it can't get any better than that. I'd like to introduce my friend here, Joe. He's born in Cleveland, Ohio. And he is a great, great Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I couldn't resist. No, he is a Cleveland Browns through and through, by default, by choice, and by bloodline. He is the grandson. His grandfather was Marion Motley, born to Marion's youngest son, Ray Motley, and his mother, Betty Dose. Joe lives in Solon with his beautiful wife, Charmin, and 3 children. Currently employed by the Park Source, a Bain Capital subsidiary, line of director of client solutions and implementation, working with biomedical engineering teams in hospitals across the country to ensure patient care is up and running. He serves as the vice president of the Hunger Network, a nonprofit in the Cleveland area, providing emergency food to those in need, as well as the operation, and it serves 70 food pantries in the area. While he is not an athlete like his grandfather, he loves basketball, and he is a fierce competitor. He and I, his wife and my wife and I, go to these charity events for golf. He likes to play golf. So his wife is in the car, and I'm in the car with my wife. We're playing, trying to win and beat, and they drinking and having a good time. So Joe said, listen, you guys get in the cart and sit over there and drink tea while we're going to golf, so we can get this done. I had to start laughing. They did. They got in the cart, drove over there. They sitting under the tree drinking tea while Joe and I are trying to do this golf thing so we can win, because we're trying to compete. But that's the kind of gentleman you're about to hear. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend, Joe Dose.
Thank you all for being here today. What George didn't mention is that when our wives were in their cart doing their thing, we're all trying to golf, they're driving across poles. Like, people are golfing into them, they're yelling, you're like, it's my wife, what are you doing? So that was a good time. But again, thank you all for being here today, I appreciate it. I'm always amazed at the turnout that, the recognition from my grandfather that it happens. I'm not an athlete like my grandfather. I'm an athlete, but not as good as he was. But I did get his hairline, so I got that going for me. So that's good. But I'm often asked to speak about my grandfather on behalf of him or about him. And even though public speaking is not my thing, I do it, really for work. That's how I train people on software across the country in hospitals. But I'd rather not be in front of people speaking. But we had a dedication to my grandfather. A statue was put up in his honor in the park last summer. And they asked me to speak there. So I was honored to do so. It was awesome. And I was revved up. Like, it went really well. The people were great. The statue's great. RJ's like, hey, you want to speak at the luncheon? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then a month ago, I'm like, I got to speak where? What am I doing? But for me, the hardest thing is really to figure out what to talk about. Because to me, he's just my grandfather. If it's an event or a certain purpose, then sometimes I can gear the speech towards that. But RJ's like, talk about whatever you want. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. But I figure I'll do what I do for work and share what I know and share what I have to offer. And that's about my grandfather, him and his life and how I saw it growing up. So often people first meet me and they say, what's it like to be Marion Motley's grandson? And I'm like, he was just grandpa. He was a really laid-back guy. I didn't realize until I got much older what all he had done, what all he had accomplished. And even when I did realize that, I'm probably 12 years old, 13 years old, when I really comprehended the impact of he's made. And he was like 6 foot, 6'1", and by then he was old, late 50s, a little bit shrunken, and I was like 6'2" at 13. I'm like, you did what? But he was an amazing man. He was also very humble. He lived a humble life in the beginning and at the end of his life. And he modeled that humility and passed it on to his family. And I try to live my life that same way. So like when RJ asked for a bio, I'm like, I'm just a dude. I don't go around touting a vice president of this or that or director. I'm just here, as my grandfather would say, I'm a servant leader. And I have a hard time boasting about my grandfather. I don't walk in and say, hi, I'm his grandson, how you doing? Most time my friends were all at an event or we'll be at a network event and meeting new people, and they're like, you want to tell them or should I? And I'm like, go ahead, tell them. And usually half the people are like, you're who? He's your grandfather? It's amazing. Other half are like, who's he? But it goes to show you that you never know who you're sitting with, who you're next to. Ordinary people do extraordinary things. So he would come to my football and basketball games when I was a kid, and he'd be sitting in the stands, with his sunglasses, cigar, lit or not lit, depends, and a hat. Not because he was hiding, this is how he was, this is how he kind of chilled. And I'm sure people had no clue who was in the stands with them. But there was usually some parent that would figure it out, because he's with my mom and my dad, and it was autograph time. It was like, we're stuck there for hours signing autographs. It was, to me, I couldn't comprehend what was going on. But it was funny is that as I get older and matured in the sports and the games, people would come to the events and the games just to see if he was going to be there or not. Like, I was like, Mr. Johnson, how are you doing? What are you doing here? Your son graduated last year. He's like, I'm here for the game. We're not that good. Why are you here? And I'm not convinced fully that the coaches didn't put me on the teams, so if I would play, she would show up. I'm not convinced that, but who knows? But again, ordinary people do extraordinary things. So my grandfather always taught me, and I try to pass it on, to be kind and respectful to people. He was the same way when he went to the Hall of Fame every weekend to get his mail. He'd walk in, he'd shake everybody's hand, he'd know them by name. I'm bad at names, but he was really good at that. And he would treat the president the same way he treated the janitor. Nice to meet you, how's your family, what's going on? And that always impressed me. And little things too, he just kind of, educated me about. So with my wife, thank you for being here, babe. She made it here late, but she made it. Thank you, baby.
She's welcome to come on up.
Come on up to the front, babe.
We got a seat for you.
Charmin. No, I really do appreciate her. She is my rock. She drove all the way from Cleveland. She was working throughout the day, and she said she'd make it if she could, and I'm sure she moved things to make sure she was here for me. So I appreciate you, baby. But so when I'm with my wife, she never opens a door. Whether it's a car door or a door to a building, she's not touching it. I'm opening the car doors. And also, if we're walking down the street, we go for walks in our neighborhood, I'm walking on the curbside. So if something were to happen, I'm getting hit first. That's just how my grandfather taught me. So how many of you here have seen a video or a documentary of my grandfather? Gonna guess a lot, okay. And how many of those have how many people have just Googled him this past week when you heard I was coming? All right, so if those who have seen him who have not seen him, I'm gonna run down his stats, and if you did see him, you'd understand why. If you haven't, it's kind of amazing. So a couple of things to highlight. Obviously, he reintegrated football in 1946 with the other forgotten three. Bill Willis, Kenny Washington, and Woody Strode. He was the second African-American inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame after Elman Tennell the year before. He was inducted into, this is a long list here, Ohio Civil Rights Hall of Fame, Nevada Athletics Hall of Fame, the Cleveland Browns Ring of Honor, the Black Sports Hall of Fame, and there's probably others I've forgotten or don't even know about. In his 9 years and 106 games playing for the Browns, and 1 year for Pittsburgh, it wasn't very long. His heart was in Cleveland. So, not a long career. He accumulated almost 5,000 yards, almost 6 per carry. He was All AAFC 5 times, All NFL once, All Pro 3 times. He made the Pro Bowl once. He was the league rushing title twice, and the team for the Browns were leading rusher 5 times. So the Browns were a great team back in the 40s and 50s, fantastic team. While he was there, they won 5 championships, and there's no doubting the talent they had on that team. But he was obviously a major contributor. So when he left the Browns in '53, he left the club #1 in career rushing attempts, season rushing attempts, single game rushing attempts, career rushing yards, season rushing yards, the longest run from scrimmage, most yards gained rushing in a game, and most kickoff returns. And the Browns were really a pass-heavy offense at that time, but he did all that. He was named the 1940s All-Decade Team. He was on the NFL 75th Anniversary All-Time Team. And this most recently, he was honored to be one of the top 100 players of all time in the NFL. Very impressive. But all of that almost didn't happen. When he graduated from Canton, he went on to South Carolina State. He was there less than a year. Because of the extreme racism, he just couldn't take it. So he was heading back home. But then he got the opportunity to go to the University of Nevada. And on his way there, he was in a really bad car accident. Actually got into some legal trouble as well. But the community rallied around him, and they helped him move through that, both the injury and as well as the car accident. And then while at University of Nevada, he had a knee injury, like career-ending knee injury. They didn't think he was going to play again. So he came back home to Canton again. And he worked in the steel mill. So while in the steel mill, he says that the heat in the area fixed his knee. The temperature in the short area mended his knee. It's not medically proven, but that's what he told me. I'm like, okay. But then, so back healthy, back ready to go, but he was not drafted by the league. He actually asked to come and try out for teams, and they said no. It wasn't until Paul Brown gave him the chance, really just to be Bill Willis's roommate. So at that time, the LA Rams and the Browns took a chance and brought 2 African-American players on each team. So Paul Brown knew my grandfather from Canton as well as the time in the Navy, and he said, you know, Marion could do, not knowing he's going to be anything special, just he was going to be an African-American roommate for Bill on the road. And so, again, just an ordinary man, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. So when he did all of that, again, from my standpoint, he did it to provide for his family. He did it to play the game that he loved. When he broke that color barrier, I think he did it because he knew someone had to do it. It had to be done, so he did it. So for me, that's the most amazing thing about his life, is integrating football. It's less about what he did in the field, although that was great. It was more about the time and the environment he did it in. Think about trying to do something you love. You enjoy playing a game, and people don't want you there. Segregation at hotels, restaurants, and stadiums. He told me a story once where they were riding the bus and they stopped at a hotel. It was in Florida. The manager says, "We have your rooms ready. We're so glad you're here. Those two can't stay here, though. We have a place for them down the road." Paul Brown said, "They stay or none of us stay." He started packing the team back up on the bus, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, you can stay." Paul said, "I'll make sure that the whole league knows how this is ran." So, you know, to have Paul stand up for them, that was pretty impressive. But to have death threats, again, a game in Florida, I believe it was Miami, my grandfather told me that they were going down to Florida next week, and they said, if you put whatever explicit you want in there to call someone, we're going to kill them. And so that was the one game Paul pulled them out of for their own safety. And both those stories, it's one thing when you hear a story on a documentary. My grandfather told me that story directly. And then I later met Otto Graham's children. She has the two brothers, and they told me the exact same story, almost word for word. I was like, oh my God, it really happened. You know, when you hear it multiple times, it's incredible. But they were told to take whatever they get and not react. To be patient, calm, and have self-control. You know, that was what Paul asked of them, because they were looking, the league and other owners looking for any reason to get rid of him, to sabotage Paul's, opportunity, to sabotage their careers. So during pileups, my grandfather gets tackled, he'd tell me stories, and he showed me marks on his hands where they cleated him. He had the metal cleats. They'd stomp his hands. They'd punch him in the face. They'd bite him. Who bites somebody? That's crazy. But they'd have late hits. The ref wouldn't call it dead. They'd hit him, when he was already down. He's like, "Ref, what's going on?" They said, "You keep playing." So my grandfather said, "I'll take it out on the next play." So he'd run over guys. Eventually it got to the point where the refs had to stop the call to protect the other players, because he was running them over so much. He told me, "I run over those white boys every time they get a chance." And he, dish it back the way he could. Woody Strode once said, and this is shocking, he said, "If I have to integrate heaven, I don't want to go." Can you imagine that? That's like ultimate where we all want to be, right? But if I have to integrate it, I don't want to be there. That either literally or figuratively is shocking to me. That shows the kind of hatred they went through and they experienced. I could not have done it. No way. So being a mixed race child in the 80s and 90s, I had my fair share of issues, but nowhere near what they went through. But someone would look at me funny and be like, "You got a problem?" But they stayed calm, cool, and just rolled through it. It's amazing to me. So those trailblazers, along with others, have gone on to do amazing things. So just to call out a few. So Jackie Robinson, first African-American Major League Baseball player in the modern era, of course. That was 1 year after my grandfather, just want to note that. Jesse Brown, he's one of the first naval aviators. They actually have a movie out about him called Devotion with Jonathan Majors. Just recently watched it this weekend. Really impressive. Story you never would have known of. Ida Rollins, first African-American woman to earn a dental degree in the United States. Jack Johnson, first African-American heavyweight boxing champion. He said he'd change the game. And James Wormley Jones, the first African-American special agent in the FBI. All ordinary people who went on to do extraordinary things. Did they set out to do those amazing things? Maybe. Did they work hard to accomplish their goals? For sure. But it's also possible that someone gave them a chance. Someone opened the door and they ran through it. So as a man, my grandfather was obviously a civil rights pioneer, a great football player, but he was also an avid golfer. Always golfing. When I was a kid, younger, I thought it was his job. I thought he was a pro golfer. I had no clue. But he was an overall athlete. The Browns would play basketball in the summertime, and they would just crush teams. And so when I was a kid, my grandfather would play with me in the driveway. Now I'm running around past him, faster, but I could not beat him in horse to save my life. He could just shoot every shot he wanted to do. But he was a very hard worker. He worked in a few places I'll mention: the steel mill, the post office. He tried his venture in real estate. Actually owned a bar for a while. County government, youth programs, and the Ohio lottery. I actually read once he drove a dump truck for a while too. Just amazing life he led. But he would do anything he needed to do to provide for his family. And I read this once, I didn't hear him say it, but he said, again, modest, humble, I'm able to do what I need to keep what I got. It wasn't about doing more or getting more. He wanted to maintain his life and be able to take care of his family. And actually, he also, I'm not sure if you know this one, it's kind of a lesser known fact, he coached a professional women's football team in the attempt to get into, coaching in the NFL. And that's probably the one I'm most thankful for that he did. And you might ask, why would you care about coaching women's football? Because that's how my parents met. Head coach, my dad was assistant coach, my mom was a player. And then came me, so. I don't like racism, but I'm glad he didn't get a chance to go to the NFL before he coached that team, so that was good. But he was always laid back and calm. When I was a kid, he would take me and my cousins and my siblings to the enshrinement ceremonies. We'd be riding in the parade with them, and we're like, we're all excited and stuff. So we're getting dressed in the morning, like, hey, Grandpa, let's go. When are you gonna be there? He'd be like, when I get there. He just laid back, very, very calm. But things he didn't do that you may not be aware of, he never coached in the NFL. After he played, he knew the game, major intelligence. But again, never the opportunity to do that. He even asked former coaches and former players who had places on NFL teams, and they said no. He was never a scout for the NFL. He tried multiple times to be a scout for the Browns and other teams, and it never happened. He was really put off by that. They thought, you lacking my intelligence? Let me go to the African American schools. Let me try that. But they never got a chance. He ran for county commissioner, didn't get it. He ran for state representative, which is shocking to me, because if Arnold Schwarzenegger can be the governor, my grandfather can definitely be a state representative. But he never got that chance. So, he wasn't qualified? Maybe he was too modest to boast his notoriety of his role and what he had done. Maybe it's still the racism of the 50s and 60s that he couldn't overcome. Or maybe it was that someone didn't give him that chance for those opportunities that he wanted. So in closing, if you have the opportunity to help someone, to give them an opportunity, do it. And I don't mean a handout. I mean, outreach and giving back is very, very important. But I'm saying make a connection, a network connection. Give someone a career opportunity that they have a chance. Or even share an experience. Because you never know when the ordinary person can do extraordinary things. Thank you. Is now Q&A? Okay, Q&A. I said a lot of stats, so maybe you don't know the stats. Yes?
Your grandfather's memorabilia?
Do I have any of it? Some. So between the family, like the bus, the jacket, the rings, it's kind of dispersed everywhere. The one thing that I recently received, and it's amazing, I actually almost wore it today, but I didn't, like the top 100 red jackets they gave out in the Super Bowl that year. I got it in a box, it's velvet, it's beautiful. I was like, I don't want to mess this up though, because I was going to wear it, but I was like,
Do any of the teams he played for ever invite the family back to the games?
On occasion, the Browns have had our family there for different events and acknowledgments. We don't have any kind of season tickets, but it'd be nice. But it's really weird that they just don't and have not taken care of the older players the way you would expect. I mean, like today's players make stupid money, right? But when my grandfather, they wasn't I think until the 80s they actually got a pension for them, and it was like $6,000 a year. For all that playing they did and abuse they took, like every time I go anywhere, I promote that they should at least provide health care for all the enshrinees, free health care, at minimum.
I coached Marion and Vivian at Timpkin in Hartford.
That's crazy.
It's been a while though.
That's awesome.
I know the players back then played for the love of the game. How much did your grandfather make the years he played?
So the first contract he got, I want to say it was like $4,000, and that, from my understanding, that was like $60,000, the equivalent to today's money.
What's the longest kick he ever made?
So I don't think he kicked. Kick return? I don't think he kicked much. I think he might did it once, but he did more special teams and returns. The return, I don't know, but I know he had a 78-yard run for a touchdown. That's the longest one at that time, for the record for the Browns.
Do you have any children that are athletes?
Boy, do I. No, actually, yeah. My son, he's 16. He's pretty athletic. He is a sophomore in Solon, and he plays for the varsity. So my grandfather was about 6 foot. My dad's about 6'2". I'm almost 6'4". My son's bigger than me already. So my grandkids will be like 6'9" by the time we start. Yes. Oh, sorry. The light.
At one point, they talked about moving the NFL Alumni Association into an office next to the Benson Stadium. I don't know if it was a rumor, or has that plan ever come to fruition, or is it going to come to fruition of trying to have a place for the NFL alumni to not only have an office, but perhaps have rehabilitation things?
That'd be amazing. I have heard about it. I don't know where it stands. I know that they're redoing the whole area, that adding on to the additional structures and water parks. So I would hope they would do that, have a space for the alumni. Yeah.
Doesn't Marion Motley have the all-time rushing yards per carry of any pro football player?
Yeah. So you take his
It's over
carries.
6 foot, 6 yards a carry.
Yeah. It was like 5. It's like 5.8.
Or 5.8.
So if you take, so like the way they I read it about it is that, so Jim Brown had like 12,000 yards, but he also had 2.5 times the carries my grandfather had. So if you take it by yard average, he still has the top. I think one of the current players, Chubbs, Chubbs, he's a beast. He's getting close to it. And so our family's like, oh no. I mean, we want the Browns to do well, but say the records.
Jim Brown was 5.7.
Yeah, he was right below him, like 5'6", 5'7". My grandpa was just a hair above him. Yeah, thank you. Oh,
Did your
the
grandfather,
beautiful woman to my left.
did your grandfather do anything else? Culinary skills?
Culinary skills. Well, you had the recipes, yeah. So yeah, I mean, so my grandfather, my dad, both, it was always barbecues, family barbecues, and they have our own little family recipes, and like. She always makes fun of me about this. She's from Cincinnati, so she has chili with spaghetti and meat on it, which I think is weird. I love it, but it's not chili to me. But also, the recipe my grandfather made was spaghetti. It had a lot of vegetables and it was very hearty. I used a fork and knife to cut it up. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, this is how we do it. I don't know. That's how our family was. So yeah, barbecues, there are recipes.
Did any of your brothers or your cousins follow in your grandfather's footsteps with football?
Not as far as he did. So my brother did play in college, but not much further than that. I played football in high school, but then played more recreational basketball in college. My sister, while not very athletic, is the mayor of College Park in Atlanta. So from the political side, she got further than he did. But athletic-wise, she's not, though.
Great.
Oh,
Two questions for you. How did you and your wife meet? And then secondly, what about, yeah, I'll think of the other one.
Okay. So it's funny, this is actually, you guys told a story like last week at my birthday party. So we met right when my wife's daughter was going off to college. We have a blended family. So I have a bonus daughter I didn't expect, but I'm so thankful that I have. So she had just gone off to college, and so my wife, at that time, beautiful woman, was trying to find her way. So she's in the bookstore, and I was just recently divorced a few years back, and trying to get my life together. So I'm in the self-help section, trying to figure out what to do and how to get moving forward. And so I saw her reaching for a book, and she's beautiful, but she's little. She's fun size, I call it. So she's reaching for a book, and I'm like, opportunity. So I'm like, let me get that for you. And I don't even know what book it was, but it didn't matter. But we started talking, and we hit it off, so.
Okay, and then the second one, I didn't think of the second one. Injury obviously took away his college career. And then for him, did he have other injuries as he played for the Browns? Obviously none serious enough to make him not play as a Brown. So any idea, did he ever share anything with you on that?
Yeah, the knee was the big thing.
Knee.
So the same knee he injured in college, he was in like 3 major accidents, and who knows how that contributed to things. But his knee always that's why I actually took him out of the league. He declined in abilities and how he's performing for the team, which ended up him being traded. And then ultimately not playing anymore. He just couldn't rehab it. But the knee always gave him trouble. Yeah, that was the biggest thing.
And the trivia question would be, was it his left knee or right?
Left.
Was your grandfather a mentor to Jim Brown, and did they spend a lot of time together conversing, or were they close?
Not that I'm aware of, to be honest. I think they met at functions. I don't want to say they had a rivalry, but I don't know them to be close. I know for whenever I hear, there's always a comparison between the two. But really different age, different type of game was going on. But in terms of alumni, they were close, but not friends that I'm aware of.
Both about the same size?
About that, I think Jim maybe been a little bit taller. He's like 6'2". Yeah, so my grandpa was like 6'1".
Thanks for coming.
No, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Your
Yes.
grandfather was born in Georgia. How did he end up in Canton? Any stories on that?
Well, from what I understand is that he was born in Georgia. His father, Shakeful, was really trying to get a better life for the family. Racism still rampant, so he ended up, I don't know how he picked Canton, but they ended up here. I think it was actually for work. He looked for work more north, and this is where he ended up.
Matlin must have not heard of him.
They didn't hear him, they got to know him though, didn't they?
I'd be curious to find out, because a lot of us are old.
Mature.
Yeah, mature, thank you. And we're all mostly from the Canton area. How many people in this audience have met Marion and have maybe a story to tell about?
I was going to ask the same thing. If you could raise your hands if you met him, that's amazing. He was definitely a man of the people, that's for sure. Any good stories to tell? I would love to hear them too.
Okay, so back in probably late '80s or whatever, Larry King came to town for the Hall of Fame Festival and broadcast his show from the lobby, Park Hotel, the old Park Hotel. And so he had Marion on his show, and I was standing right there, and we were saying like, boy, I hear you were a fierce player when you played. He said, I would have hated to have gotten in your way on the field. And he said, well, Larry, I'd have hated for you to get in my way too.
That's him. That's definitely him. That's funny.
Have you written a book yet? Bill Willis's daughter wrote a book about it.
Yeah, actually, I brought one of the books here that there were some stories in there I didn't know. It's amazing in the last couple of years the kind of resurgence of focus on my grandfather in terms of books, the statue, documentaries. I'm hoping to make a movie. I can play him in the older version, I'm hoping. But yeah, there's been a lot of good books. Thank you.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about the statue? I didn't know a whole lot about him, but I just think where they place it at is really cool, and it's just like a welcoming.
Yeah, it's
I
amazing.
never realized that he was in there before Jackie Robinson was in baseball.
Yeah.
I just think the people that donated for it, and it's just all it's a beautiful statue.
No, it's a beautiful statue. And I can't thank the team enough who made it happen. Actually, I think I brought names of the team. So I actually wanted to mention this. So the statue team, Dave Jingo, Antonio Hall, Michael Harrison, Jill Thomas, and RJ Van Allen, they actually made that happen. It was truly amazing. And I actually said this at the statue unveiling, is that they called us and they're like, hey, we want to do a statue. I'm like, yes, let's do this. Well, what do you need us to do? Is get some money together, need us to get, petitions, ability to do it. And they're like, nope, already done. I'm like, you got permission, you don't need money. Like, what do you guys need from us? We want you to be part of it, that's it. So our family was so honored to have, the ability to be part of that ceremony. That, to your point, it's in the middle of the park. I say that he's welcoming people to the park where he grew up. He's welcoming people to the Hall of Fame up the road there. It's a beautiful monument to him.
Way in the back.
Your grandfather, during World War II, played for the naval captain, not naval captain, but the Great Lakes Naval.
Yep.
Played for Paul Brown.
Yes.
What kind of success did he have there?
Really well. So one of the biggest games that I understand that they beat Notre Dame, and that's how they kind of, Paul Brown's already known before that, but that game was huge, my understanding, so he did really well there. Not enough to get drafted, but he played a pretty big role from what I understand in that team. Question?
Well, besides golf, did your grandfather excel at any other sports like basketball or track?
From my understanding, he did everything well. Seriously, he was just an all-around athlete. I did hear stories, again, so he was older when I was, around to play with him, but he was a great basketball player, really, really well. My son has no clue, but he's like, I get it from my great-grandfather. I'm like, dude, all right, whatever. That's all right. Claim what you got, Any other stories? That was a good one. RJ, you got a story?
No, I was just going to ask you to speak on your experience with the documentary, and maybe the crowd doesn't know that the award that documentary won.
Yeah, no, thank you. I was just going to mention that too. So, Lines Broken, the story of Marion Motley, put together by James Waters, Sean Harrington, David Lee Morgan, and James Wells, as well as Dave Jingo. Made a documentary about my grandfather and interviewed family, former players, former teammates, competitors, and did a beautiful, just amazing tribute to him. And it showed his life progressions, and it wasn't all happy, sunshine and roses, but it was a really, really well done documentary. I think it was like almost an hour long. It was on PBS, and it was amazing. They won, and we were able to take part in an Emmy. They won an Emmy award for it. So we went to Indianapolis, and we were just happy to be there. and they said, Marion Motley, and we're like, who, what, that's us. Our table went nuts. It was really, really cool though, so.
Was he playing for the Bulldogs when Paul Rahm was coaching in Massillon, or what was the?
Yeah, he did. So he, my understanding is that his school won every game for the season except for one. The one they played against Paul Brown, 3 years in a row. And so, but Paul knew him and saw what he was able to, and that's kind of why he got with Navy as well as the Browns.
You still have family living in this area?
We got a lot of family everywhere, yeah. So wide net of, so my grandfather had 4 boys, and then he had 3 or 4 siblings, so we got cousins everywhere. So yeah, in Canton, in Cleveland, in the South, in Georgia, Florida, yeah, big family.
What do you think your grandfather would say about today's game?
So, that's a loaded question, but I remember when we used to watch football together, he'd say the guys are soft. I mean, especially now, you can't even hit somebody. The quarterback can't get touched. No, think about it. He played with no face mask. They played in tennis shoes at times when the field was frozen. So you got guys with pads and extra, fitting things. To think about what he could have done in an environment such as now, AstroTurf and the equipment and the rehabs they have, you know what I mean? So I think he'd probably be a little disappointed, to be honest. I think I saw it right there.
Do you have a comment from the committee, the statute committee, on the effect that they feel that that statue at that location has had on the community?
They're pointing at each other, so we'll see who's going to win.
I don't have a voice.
I don't have a public speaker.
Nor now.
Thanks, guys. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
The effect that the statue at that location and the statue in general has had on the community and Marion's legacy?
I would say the most important positive effect that the statue has had on the community, and something we were talking about earlier, is just educating people on who Marion is. So, a lot of you in this room, know who Marion is, but there are a lot of people in Canton that don't. A lot of our kids don't know who Marion is. RJ and I were talking, and Antonio Hall took a survey of students, over 500 students, and they had no idea who Marion Motley was. So I think the biggest impact it's going to have on the community is educating everyone in Canton who Marion Motley was, not only as a football player, but also as a civil rights leader, and all of the things that he had to endure to get to where he was and reaching that highest level of achievement. And especially for our kids at high school, if Marion could go through all of those things and achieve the greatness that he achieved, why can't they?
You're not a public speaker. No, and I can't thank you guys enough for that tribute and again acknowledgement to share that information and to provide encouragement for the youth in the area. It's awesome.
Does your family come back for the Hall of Fame weekend? The Motley family, do they get involved with activities?
On occasion, yeah. It depends on how big so last year, actually, he won another award last year. I forgot about. The Pioneer Award. So a lot of our family was invited back to the events and whatnot. What they do is for the previous alumni players, actually they come back, but for those who have passed on, they provide a set of tickets for the family, and we got to fight over it. So it depends on who's going what years, and so Super Bowl, that was a fun year. That was family ties. That was rough.
Well, Joe Thomas is going in, so.
Yeah, and so we were just talking about it earlier. Joe Thomas is going in. He was at a Cavs game we were at like 2 weeks ago, and he's half the size he was when he played. It's amazing. Like the linemen in today's game, how they shrink because there's so much exercise and workout they do. And I was like, it's not Joe Thomas. He's so little. But Yeah, it's amazing. Right, it really did. He deflated. He's still a big dude, but not anywhere the size he was. It's nuts.
You know, in the early 70s, I'm in the real estate auction business since then. But I remember a couple of times Marion showed up at a couple of our auctions, and he bought like investment properties.
Yeah.
Is he still invested in the Canton area?
So he did have a couple properties. He actually had an apartment, and so his real estate ventures went sideways, most of them. I'm not aware of any real estate that the family still owns today. He just got into a bad situation, trusted the wrong people, and the ventures didn't pan out. Actually, so in the book, I read a story. I didn't know this either. I knew they owned the bar, but at the bar, actually a former player, I can't remember his name, came to the bar and was causing trouble. My grandfather put him out. He came back again with a gun. The police were there just by circumstance and shot the guy. So you got a bar with a dead person in front of it. It wasn't good for business. So.
I was 23 years old. I go, man, that's Marion Motley, and he seemed taller than 6'1" to me. I mean, he just looked huge. We had another auction one time where Larry Zonka showed up, and one of our guys who worked with us, I don't know if anybody knows Lenny Milano. Lenny he played for St. Thomas Aquinas, and you're like 9-1 and 10-0, and Lenny was always a good football player. And saw Larry Zonka out there in the crowd, and I looked at Lenny and says, Lenny, look at that guy out there. I said, you tackle that guy? And Lenny's there like, he's tough till he saw Larry Zonka stand out there.
Right.
Marion was the same way. I mean, you saw him, he's big and tough.
He was a big dude. So I remember when he was little, he's bigger than life to me.
I mean, he's like a trainer, a tank. I wouldn't want to tackle him.
Oh gosh, no. I mean, he's like 250, like 6'1", they say.
But I always thought in my mind, I mean, if he's healthy, him and Jim Brown are probably the two best runners that the Browns ever had. I mean, Chubb's really good now.
Yeah.
But Marion Motley is like a lineman that could run fast.
So it's been quoted, and again, it's hard for me to say, oh, my grandpa was the best. But they have, people have said, and I'm trying to think of the names that have said it, he is one of the best overall, all-round football players, running backs especially, because he not only ran and he caught, but he blocked. So, Otto Graham got all the time he needed in the world because my grandpa was blocking for him. And he also played linebacker as well on the defensive side. So he was a beast. He did everything.
One more question. What year did he pass?
He passed in, I want to say, 98, because it happened right before my graduation in college. I was like devastated he didn't see me graduate.
It says June 27th, 99 here.
99, because I graduated 99 in December. Yep. Google.
Thank you, Google.
How did he live out his last couple years of his life? Was he fairly healthy, or?
So I remember the downside of things. I would say that, so the game took a real toll on him. He was hobbling around, the last years. But again, they didn't make much money. He was trying to provide for the family. He actually got divorced from my grandmother and lost some money there, bad real estate investments. So he lived pretty humbly, to be honest. And his body was really broken down from the game.
Where was he living at the time?
In Cleveland with my father on HOF Avenue. And it's one house we still own, the HOF house, I think.
Did your grandfather have to work when he was playing with the Browns?
Yeah, they didn't make enough money.
Okay.
Yeah, so he would work on the side. Again, random jobs, driving a dump truck. I was like, what? It's weird, but yeah, so they would all work majority of the time. Any other questions or stories? All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.